This is Tony T here from Tony'sPicks.com with our college football pick show here. This will be a week 9, part 1. We'll get you 15 games from Saturday. We're going to do these in parts to get them all done for you before Friday. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks over our channel over by myself, as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com. Make it a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate that. We go live every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It is the Tony's Picks Morning Show, so tune into that. Interact with us in that live chat. Then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top performers in our industry. Click the links to the hot cappers, get some to long-term passes. You see our top performers up here, guys like Sean Higgs, DeAndre, Rod Zawacki, guys you know from our live show, as well as a YouTube video. Brian Baylor has been red hot on the leaderboard as well. Brian Palmer up there. Alino's latest picks here. Send the page with best bets and more. Will be locked and loaded here for this card on Tuesday. Remember, all of our one-day passes are profit guaranteed. They must turn a profit amount purchased will be correct back to your account for site credits. That's profit guarantee. And then our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. The link is in the description to get signed up. So let's go ahead. Let's get this one underway. All right, we start here with Syracuse and Georgia Tech for Saturday. Syracuse fell to 3-4 after their 30-13 home defeat to Pittsburgh. The Orange rushed for 2.5 yards per carry and struggled in the passing game. They shut down the Panthers' run and passing game, but turnovers were the difference. Ricky Collins here, 15-31 passing for 126 yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He has had 6 interceptions in the past 2 games. Georgia Tech improved to 7-0 with a 27-16 road win at Duke. The Yellow Jackets rushed for 171 yards for 4.8 yards a carry and were efficient in the passing game. They limited the Blue Devils to 2.2 yards a carry with 373 passing yards for 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Haynes King here, 14-21 passing for 205 yards. He rushed for 120 yards and a score. Quarterback turnover is a massive concern for Syracuse as they lost their starter for the season several weeks ago. The Orange offensive performance has been bad on the road and would expect more emphasis on the ground due to the quarterback mistakes. Georgia Tech at home allows 19 points per game behind great pass defense. Syracuse 1-3 in the under on the road, final loss by 17 or greater points. Pick here Syracuse and Georgia Tech under 55. App State and Old Dominion going off on Saturday. We got App State 4-3 after a 45-27 home defeat to Coastal Carolina. Mountaineers moved the ball through the air for 132 rushing yards for 3.8 yards a carry, but defensively also struggled to defend the pass and run. J.J. Cole, 27-41 for 278 yards with 2 touchdowns. Old Dominion 4-3 after a 63-27 road defeat to James Madison. The Monarchs were limited on the ground and efficient through the air on offense. They gave up 624 yards to the Dukes, defending the pass and run poorly. Colton Joseph went 13-21 for 209 yards with 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. App State defense is defending the pass poorly on the road by allowing 301 yards per game, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. On offense, they rushed for 3.3 yards a carry and getting inefficient work at quarterback on the highway. ODU at home putting up 41 points per game and allowing 7 per game. All good in the key data points on offense and defense at home. App State 2-5, the spread on the road, facing teams that average 4.75 yards per rush or greater. Pick here Old Dominion minus 13.5. Virginia and North Carolina, this one going off on Saturday. Virginia now 6-1 after a 22-20 home victory against Washington State. The Cavs rushed for 122 yards for 3.8 yards a carry and had movement in the passing game. They allowed 143 yards rushing to the Cougars for 4.1 yards a carry and 6.8 yards per pass attempt. Chandler Morris in the game, 15-25 passing for 179 yards. North Carolina fell to 2-4 after a 21-18 road defeat to Cal. The Tar Heels rushed for 120 yards for 4 yards a carry, but inefficient in the passing game. They limited the Golden Bears' ground attack and allowed 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Gio Lopez, 19-35 passes for 167 yards. Virginia's offensive numbers have lowered of late, but offensively on the road, they averaged 5.5 yards a carry with accuracy at the quarterback position. North Carolina passing game has been poor this year. The Tar Heels at home allowing 73% completion rate, 8.3 yards per pass attempt. The Cavs 8-3 to the spread at home. North Carolina is 0-4 to the spread as home underdog. Pick here Virginia -10. Ole Miss and Oklahoma. This one for Saturday. We got Ole Miss dropping to 6-1 after their 43-35 road defeat to Georgia. Rebels were effective in the passing game and rushed for 88 yards for 3.7 yards per run. They allowed 510 yards to the Bulldogs with poor work against the run and pass. Trinidad Chambliss here, 19-20, 36 passes for 263 yards with a touchdown. He had 2 rushing scores. Oklahoma is 6-1 with their 26-7 road win in South Carolina. The Sooners were ineffective in the passing game and rushed for 171 yards for 4.3 yards a carry. They held the Gamecocks at 224 yards with great work on the pass and run defense. John Mateer, 18-26 passing for 150 yards and a touchdown. Mateer has been inefficient in the passing department after a return from his thumb injury. Ole Miss against the conference throwing for 292 yards and 9.1 yards per pass attempt. They're also rushing for 4 yards a carry against the SEC. The Sooners against the SEC rushed for 2.6 yards a carry with only 6.2 yards per pass attempt. Pick here will be Ole Miss +4.5. Ohio and Eastern Michigan going off on Saturday. All right, we got Ohio at 4-3 after a 48-21 home victory against Northern Illinois. The Bobcats rushed for 333 yards for 6.5 yards a carry and effective in the passing game. They limited the Huskies' passing attack and allowed 132 yards for rushing for 5.1 yards per carry. Parker Navarro here, 17 of 23 passing for 205 yards with a pick. He rushed for 43 yards and a score. Eastern Michigan 2-6 after a 44-30 road defeat at Miami, Ohio. The Eagles rushed for 2.9 yards a carry and had good movement through the air. On defense, they allowed 295 yards rushing for 5.5 yards a carry and 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Noah Kim goes 20 of 36 passes for 309 yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. Ohio against the conference is rushing for 5.9 yards a carry and getting efficient work at quarterback. They have defended the pass well against the MAC. EMU has lost 3 of 4 against the MAC by allowing 5.5 yards per rush and 234 yards rushing per game. Their running game and quarterback play has not been good against the MAC. The Bobcats 4-1 the spread on the road against teams that allow 5.9 yards per play or greater. Pick here Ohio -12.5. Rutgers and Purdue going off on Saturday. We got Rutgers here at 3-4 after their 56-10 home defeat to Oregon. The Scarlet Knights rushed for 123 yards for 2.9 yards a carry and were ineffective in the passing game. They allowed 750 yards to the Ducks with poor defense against the run and pass. Ethan Kalkmanis, 8 of 25 passing for 79 yards and 2 picks. Purdue sits at 2-5 after a 19-0 road defeat at Northwestern. The Boilermakers have movement in the passing game and rushed for 87 yards for 2.6 yards a carry. They limited the Wildcats' passing game and allowed 232 yards rushing for 4.6 yards a carry. Ryan Brown in the game, 5 of 10 passing for 31 yards and doubtful here for Saturday. Malachi Singleton, 11 of 20 passing for 187 yards and a touchdown. Each team is winless against the Big Ten. Purdue has issues at quarterback. The Scarlet Knights on the road have gotten really good work at quarterback. 318 yards passing per game for 7.6 yards per pass attempt. Rutgers 3-1 to the spread on the road when line between +3 and -3. Purdue 3-8 to the spread as a home underdog. Pick here Rutgers -2.5. Bowling Green and Kent State going off here on Saturday. We got Bowling Green 3-4 after a 27-6 home defeat to Central Michigan. The Falcons rushed for 157 yards for 4.4 yards a carry, and they were limited in the passing game. They allowed 203 yards rushing to Chippewas for 4.4 yards a carry, with CMU attempting only 5 passes. Drew Pine missed the game due to injury and is questionable here. Lucian Anderson, 17 of 25 for 153 yards and 2 picks. Kent State fell to 2-5 after a 45-10 road defeat at Toledo. Golden Flashes rushed for 65 yards for 2.6 yards a carry and ineffective in the passing game. They allowed 4.5 yards per run to the Rockets, with 374 yards passing for 11.7 yards per pass attempt. Drew Shields here, 12 of 23 passing for 159 yards with a touchdown and pick. Bowling Green on the road allows 35 points per game with 5 yards per rush, 10.5 yards per pass attempt. Ken at home getting good work at quarterback and allowing 18 points per game. Golden Flashes have a home win against UMass and were competitive in a 3-point defeat at to Buffalo. Pick here will be Kent State plus 8.5. Kansas State and Kansas going off here on Saturday. Kansas State improved to 3-4 after a 41-28 home victory against TCU. The Wildcats have movement in the passing game and rushed for 145 yards for 3.2 yards a carry. They limited their Horned Frogs on the ground and allowed 376 yards passing for 8 yards per pass attempt. Avery Johnson completed 16 of 26 passes for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kansas 4-3 after a 42-17 road defeat at Texas Tech. The Jayhawks rushed for 1.3 yards a carry and moved the ball through the air. They limited the Red Raiders' passing game but allowed 372 yards rushing for 9.3 yards per rush. Jalen Daniels here, 27 of 33 passes for 228 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kansas has a home loss to Cincinnati. Kansas State has defended well against the Big 12, allowing 4.3 yards a carry and 54% completion rate. They have rushed well against the conference. Kansas defense against the Big 12, allowing 242 yards rushing for 6.2 yards a carry. Pick here, Kansas State plus 3. USF and Memphis going off on Saturday. USF improved to 6-1 after a 48-13 victory against FAU. The Bulls gained 521 yards with good work in the run and passing game. They limited the Owls to 23 yards rushing and inefficient in the passing game. Byron Brown, 14 of 24 passing for 256 yards with 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 111 yards and a score. Memphis 6-1 with their 31-24 road defeat at UAB. The Tigers moved the ball through the air and rushed for 119 yards for 4.8 yards a carry. They surrendered 470 yards to the Blazers, defending the run and pass poorly. Brendan Lewis was injured early in the game, and it was questionable here. True freshman A.J. Hill, 13 of 25 passing for 175 yards with a touchdown and pick. Brendan Lewis had injury issues when he was with Nevada. That's what I was worried about with him because he's a running style quarterback, runs at high volume. Those open field hits, you're going to get hurt, and then, you're not available. They'll miss his accuracy and mobility here if he can't play. USF has wins against Florida and Boise State. USF on the road getting good quarterback play and limiting opponents on the ground. Tigers' quarterback situation is a massive issue here. We'll take USF here -4. SMU and Wake Forest going off here on Saturday. All right, SMU now 5-2 with their 35-24 road win at Clemson. The Mustangs rushed for 139 yards for 5 yards a carry and effective in the passing game. They limit the Tigers to 1.2 yards per rush with 317 yards passing for 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Kevin Jennings here, 23 of 43 passing for 290 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Wake Forest now 4-2 after a 39-14 road win at Oregon State. Demon Deacons were effective through the air and rushed for 198 yards for 7.6 yards per carry. They limited the Beavers' passing attack and allowed 134 yards rushing for 3.5 yards a carry. Robbie Ashford is dealing with a thumb injury. Deshaun Purdy went 14-27 for 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. SMU in their lone road game against a power conference school lost by 11 at TCU. Their backup quarterback has a test here. Wake Forest has defended well at home. They're running for 5 yards a carry and passing for 8.1 yards per pass attempt in their home stadium. SMU 4-7 the spread as road favorite. Pick here Wake Forest plus 3.5. UCLA and Indiana going off on Saturday. All right, you got UCLA here now 3-4 after a 20-17 home victory against Maryland. The Bruins moved the ball through the air and rushed for 193 yards for 5.5 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Terrapins through the air and allowed 127 yards rushing for nearly 5 yards a carry. Nico Iamaleava, 21-35 passing for 221 yards with a touchdown and pick. Indiana 7-0 with a 38-13 home victory against Michigan State. The Hoosiers had strong passing performance and rushed for 132 yards for 4.7 yards per attempt. Francisco Mendoza 24-28 passing for 332 yards with 4 touchdowns. They held the Spartans to 3 yards per rush and 293 yards passing for 7.7 yards per pass attempt. Indiana has failed to cover 2 of 3. The Bruins have covered 3 of 4 and have been competitive in their past 4 games. UCLA on the road, limiting opponents to 58% completion rate. They're running for 5.3 yards a carry on the road, along with quarterback accuracy. We'll take UCLA here plus the 25.5. Northwestern and Nebraska going off here on Saturday. We got Northwestern now 5-2 after a 19-0 home victory against Purdue. The Wildcats were limited in the air but rushed for 232 yards for 4.6 yards a carry. On defense, they held the Boilermakers to 3.3 yards a carry with 218 passing yards for 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Preston Stone here, 11-26 passing for 132 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Nebraska dropping to 5-2 with a 24-6 road defeat at Minnesota. The Cornhuskers rushed for 1.2 yards a carry. They allowed 186 yards rushing to the Golden Gophers for 5.3 yards a carry with 7.7 yards per pass attempt. Dylan Raiola, 17-25 passes for 177 yards and took 9 sacks in the game. The Wildcats on the run here on the ground, rushing for 2.8 yards a carry with 5.2 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they're giving up 5.7 yards per rush away from home. Wildcats would be on the road here with those numbers. Those numbers have been road numbers here. Nebraska defends well at home, getting really good quarterback play there. Pick here Nebraska -7. Auburn and Arkansas going off on Saturday. We got Auburn falling to 3-4 after a 23-17 home overtime defeat to Missouri. They moved the ball through the air and rushed for 150 yards for 3.6 yards a carry. They limited Missouri on the ground and allowed 252 yards passing for 6.3 yards per pass attempt. Jackson Arnold here, 18 of 30 passing for 207 yards with an interception and a rushing touchdown. Arkansas sits at 2-5. A 45-42 home defeat to Texas A&M. The Razorbacks rushed for 268 yards for 8.4 yards a carry and threw effectively. On defense, they allowed 497 yards to the Aggies with poor work against the run and pass. Halen Green goes 19 of 32 passing for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 85 yards and 2 scores. Arkansas has been competitive against the SEC and putting up points. Auburn against the conference has not scored more than 17 points in all 4 losses. They are rushing for 3 yards a carry and passing for 5.4 yards per pass attempt against the conference. Arkansas against the SEC running for nearly 6.5 yards a carry and throwing for 8.3 yards per pass attempt. Auburn 2-6 to the spread on the road. Following a home game, pick here Arkansas at a pickup. Akron and Buffalo going off on Saturday. Akron fell to 2-6 after a 42-28 road defeat to Ball State. The Zips moved the ball through the air and rushed for 128 yards for 3.6 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 216 yards rushing for 4.8 yards a carry with 158 passing yards for 7.9 yards per pass attempt. Ben Finley, 22 of 40 passing for 291 yards with 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Buffalo now 4-3 with a 28-21 road win at UMass. The Bulls rushed for only 2.5 yards a carry and effective in the passing game. They limited the Minutemen on the ground and allowed 184 yards rushing for 4.3 yards a carry. Taquan Roberson here, 36 of 55 passing for 403 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. Back-to-back road games here for the Zips. On the road in conference games, they are allowing 5.2 yards per rush, 8.4 yards per pass attempt with poor offensive production. The Bulls at home in conference pass for 272 yards per game, 7 yards per pass attempt, and defending their pass well. Akron 1-3 as a road underdog of 3.5 to 10 points. Pick here Buffalo -9.5. Okay, we're going to jump all the way to 7 Eastern here with this Wisconsin game. Here we go. Wisconsin and Oregon going off here on Saturday, Wisconsin fell to 2-5 after a 34-0 home defeat to Ohio State. The Badgers rushed for 3 yards at carrying, were poor in the passing game. They limited the Buckeyes' ground game but allowed 393 yards passing for 9.4 yards per pass attempt. Hunter Simmons here, 6 of 12 passing for 54 yards and a pick. Oregon now 6-1 after a 56-10 road win at Rutgers. The Ducks gained 750 yards with great work in the run and pass. They limited the Scarlet Knights to 79 yards passing, with 123 yards rushing for 2.9 yards per rush. Dante Moore, 15-20 passing for 290 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. Wisconsin has been outscored 71-0 in their past 2 games. The injury to Billy Edwards at quarterback has been a major issue. Their defense on the road gave up 74% completion rate, 326 yards passing, 11.2 yards per pass attempt. Oregon at home rushed for over 6.5 yards a carry with 9 yards per pass attempt. Wisconsin 5-1 in the over as a road underdog. Pick here will be Wisconsin-Oregon over 44. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks on our channel delivered by myself as well as our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making this a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. It really helps us build up our audience. Remember, we have our live show at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, so tune into that. And then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top performers. Link in the description there to get over there. Remember, our promo code TonyT at checkout will knock off that 15%. That will do it for now. I'm Tony T. We'll talk to you later.